righty, welcome back. And as promised, I think we have Lono on the line. Lono, are you there?
I am. How are you, Mark?
Welcome. Wonderful, wonderful. Great to have you on board.
Thank you very much. I'm just real pleased to be able to do this tonight.
Well, it's great to have you, and we have, of course, an awful lot of very interested listeners out there that are waiting to hear about some of this remarkably important information. I'd like to start off with, let's talk about our drinking water treatment plants, and
Sure.
talk a little bit about the chemicals that are used in our local water treatment plants.
Well, the chemicals that are used are basic. Can I back up just a minute?
Absolutely.
I think it's important to set the stage. All of our water treatment plants in this country were built to do two things originally. They were built to disinfect water, and they were built, number two, to make the water relatively palatable to drink. That's all they were built to do.
Mm-hmm.
And up until the 70s and into the early 80s, they were still making water mains out of lead because they had no understanding of the dangers that lead posed to the minds of developing children and adults. So we have this huge infrastructure out there, and this infrastructure is in many places 150 to 200 years old. And some of these water mains and water lines are very, very bad shape, and they leak.
Right.
And a water main, when it leaks, doesn't just all of a sudden break and start creating, holes, sinkholes that cars fall into. What they do is they'll develop pinhole leaks, and they'll leak for a while until it finally gets so bad that there's a huge erosion, and then how it's often noticed is, like I say, the street caves in. Now, the problem is, every place there's one of these holes in the water line, many of these water lines are buried right in the same ditch with a sewer line, and the sewer lines are all leaking. So these water lines are in constant contact with substances that could really be dangerous for you to take into your body, particularly microbiological pathogens, the cysts, but also things like the bacteria Salmonella typhi that creates salmonella poisoning, typhoid fever,
Sure,
cryptosporidium sort of thing. I'm sorry?
Cryptosporidium?
Yeah, cryptosporidium and giardia are both cysts that are... people don't realize, back in the 80s, science didn't even know about cryptosporidium, and it was in the water. A lot of people were getting cryptosporidium infections, and they were told that they had a stomach flu.
Well, and I remember there was a time, I can't remember how many years ago, that it was in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, I believe.
Yeah.
There were thousands of people that died.
There was 130,000 people who got sick.
Wow.
Really sick. And there were several hundred that actually died.
Incredible.
And it was all due to this organism that prior to that time we just didn't really even know was in our water.
Astounding. Well, again, when you simply think about what you just shared with us, the fact that these water treatment systems were simply designed to disinfect and make the water more palatable, that is about as low-tech as it gets.
Yeah, and they are old. That's my point. The original lines were probably the best quality. They were typically made out of cast iron if they weren't made out of lead, and they were designed to last about 150 years or so. And most of those were put in about 150 years ago. Now,
I got to believe that in the New England area that's especially problematic because we live in a very antiquated part of the world, and I got to believe there's still an awful lot of lead pipes out there.
There is. And my point being that a lot of the infrastructure now is failing.
Right.
So from the point of view of the water treatment plant, you asked me about chemicals, and I'm sorry I went far afield here. But from the point of view of the water treatment plant, what they have to do is put enough disinfectant in the water to make sure that the water stays disinfected even as it's picking up garbage all the way out to your tap. Right?
Absolutely.
So that's the thing. That's the number one priority, is to make sure that's happening. Now, what we find out is that organic matter in the water, and most of your water out in New England comes from surface water sources.
Right.
So you've got a lot of dead leaves and brush and organic humus and fish and dead animals and dead algae and whatever. And all that stuff is made out of organic molecules, carbon-based molecules.
Yep.
And then what happens is that this stuff dissolves in the water and you get what are called dissolved organic contaminants. And when you chlorinate water supplies, that chlorine mixes with those dissolved organic contaminants, and we get the production of these things that are called disinfection byproducts, which are primarily a range of trihalomethanes and haloacetic acids.
Right.
And at the risk of boring your audience with those great big chemical terms,
they're bad for you.
Yeah, they cause cancer and birth defects and a variety of liver and nervous system diseases and skin rashes and all kinds of problems.
Thus the title for your bestseller, Don't Drink the Water.
Yeah. So the bottom line is, as biochemists, I'm a biochemist and I've been through medical school. I chose not to practice as a medical doctor. I can tell you that this kind of chlorine is extremely dangerous to take into your body, and we've been telling the EPA that for a long time.
Yep.
But eventually the research got so overwhelming the EPA had to do something about it, and this is something your audience needs to understand. About 3 or 4 years ago, the EPA lowered the amount of these disinfection byproducts that can be in water to levels that are low enough that the cities can no longer put chlorine in the water by itself and meet those guidelines, because the chlorine creates too many disinfection byproducts. So what they've started doing is mixing the chlorine with the ammonia, and they put that in the water, and it creates a substance called monochloramine at normal pHs. And then what will happen is that monochloramine doesn't come back out of the water. Unlike chlorine, you have to put a lot in at the beginning so there's enough left at the end of the distribution line, right?
Right.
But with chloramine, you don't have to do that. You put in a small amount at the beginning. It doesn't react with all these dissolved organic contaminants, but it's enough to kill bacteria. It won't kill cysts, but it'll kill bacteria. And that amount is still there at the end of the distribution line by the time it gets to your house. And it's still there by the time it goes through typical water filters. And it's still there by the time it goes through a reverse osmosis system. And it's still there even after it goes through a distiller. And it actually becomes concentrated in the product water of reverse osmosis systems and distillers and water ionizers.
So it's even part of the steaming process generated by a distiller?
No. So what happens is that what normally takes out that stuff anyway, a lot of people don't know this about reverse osmosis and distillers. They've got poor ideas about these things. These things do not take everything but water out of water. What takes out all of the volatile organic chemicals, the pesticides, the herbicides, is the carbon filter that always comes along with a reverse osmosis system or a distiller.
Right.
And the problem with chloramine is regular carbon doesn't touch it. So you have to have a special kind of carbon called catalytic activated carbon, and it's very, very expensive. And so far, with the exception of the Living Waters products that are carried by Dr. Ann over there, most water systems can't remove it.
Right. We should also point out, too, that you and Dr. Ann are going to be together, and you're going to be presenting a seminar. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm going to fly out to Boston and get the opportunity to meet with those lovely people. We've had a great relationship by the phone, and I'm very impressed with both Jeff and Ann and how they look at life and run their business. And they're the kind of people that I like to work with in the water treatment business, because they tell people the truth. You know, that's the key. I get real concerned when I hear so much of the mythology that goes on out there about various kinds of water systems. It's hard for me to take.
And what is the date of this presentation, Lono?
Gosh, I'm going to have to ask you to refer to your notes there or something.
Yeah, the best thing I can tell you here is that we're going to refer people to www.wholebodysolutions.org.
There you go.
And I know the tickets are $20 in advance and $25 at the door. And you can also call 617-328-6300. I'll say that one more time, 617-328-6300 for tickets. we'll find out the date, but the bottom line of it is that's going to be a very special presentation that you are going to join, both Jeff and Ann. Dr. Ann Doggett, of course, no stranger to this broadcast. She's been a great friend of the program for a number of years. But all these issues are going to be discussed on that occasion. So folks who have questions about your water supply and about how to make a better set of decisions for you and your family regarding safe, healthy drinking water, Lono is certainly someone who is a great world-renowned expert, a great knowledge regarding this particular topic. I'd like to talk a little bit, Lono, about the residues from pharmaceutical drugs, hormone disruptors, pesticides, personal care products. What an astounding set of stories has appeared in the past few years regarding metropolitan waters loaded with drugs.
Right, and this has been going on for a while. The story starts with atrazine. Atrazine is a commonly used herbicide that was developed out of the defoliation research that was done, over Vietnam, where they were trying to defoliate trees, and atrazine was developed by a company called Syngenta that is located in Belgium. However, atrazine is banned in every country of the world with the exception of the United States. And every time you take out that handy-dandy weed killer, the one they advertise that kills all the broadleaf weeds and the dandelions but leaves the grass alone, this magical substance, well, that's atrazine. And what happens when atrazine gets used is it doesn't break down. It goes down to rivers and streams, and it acts like an endocrine disruptor. And so what happens is frogs and fish get feminized, and male human beings are more prone. The studies now indicate that there's a lot more prostate cancer and breast cancer among males who are exposed to atrazine in the water. And among females, you get a lot of birth defects and a lot of other problems. Premenstrual syndromes become extreme sometimes. Problems with postmenopausal women can be very, very extreme, all because of this atrazine, which is in almost all water supplies now. And there is a broad variety of pharmaceuticals and personal care product residues. That's a fancy name for saying people who will use lotions and then they take a shower. Well, the shower water washes the lotion off of the person, goes down the drain, and it's part of the sewer. Somebody flushes their birth control pills down the toilet. A woman takes her birth control pills and urinates, and that goes down the toilet. And all that stuff contains these drugs pretty much in the same condition that they were before that was ever put into your body.
Wow.
And then what happens is that, again, water treatment plants have never been designed to take this kind of stuff out of the water. So it just keeps going from place to place to place, getting concentrated as you go, and now we're starting to discover that these chemicals have a lot of side effects, and they create a lot of problems for the people who bathe and shower and drink the water, especially these kinds of things, because most of them, by the time they're in that state, are called volatile organic chemicals, which means they come out of the water in your shower.
Right.
So by drinking bottled water, you don't solve your problem because you're breathing in the stuff. Probably breathe more of the stuff in during a hot shower than you would from drinking water for a week.
Right. Well, the other question that I have regarding all this really depressing information, but important educating information, a lot of folks are probably thinking to themselves, now, 10, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, we never heard of such things. Now, is it your understanding that we just now finally have the technology and the awareness, or is it the fact that these residues from pharmaceutical drugs and hormone disruptors and pesticides, personal care products, were never really in our water supplies to the extent that they are now? Is our water just getting worse?
Well, our water is definitely getting worse, and we are definitely becoming more able to understand the connection between contaminants in drinking water and health. So it's a combination of both things that are occurring at the same time, and, by the way, all of a sudden we find that the infrastructure that carries this drinking water in our country is crumbling and is in need of an estimated $500 billion just to be repaired, much less to be replaced. So it's a situation where all of these things have come together in this issue, and And the difficulty, if you want to know my opinion, the very biggest problem is a government that seems hell-bent on trying to convince people that they are the solution to everything.
Right.
And the fact of the matter is, our government cannot. You would never pay the water bill for what it would take to make the water at your tap as good as if you take personal responsibility and get your own water filter. And that takes some effort. You have to be willing to get yourself educated. You have to separate the hype and the baloney from what's real. And you have to deal with educating yourself to these issues. But that's what responsible people do if they'd like to be able to keep their health. You know, one of the other things that's come up that you haven't mentioned yet tonight, I did hear you at the very beginning mention fluoride. I didn't hear you mention arsenic. Arsenic is a serious problem in water across the country, and it's also a problem up in the Northeast where you guys are, and
sure.
in your counties up in there.
Right. We are talking with Lono Uala, who is a world-renowned water filtration expert, a biochemist. He is the author of Don't Drink the Water. His best-selling work has sold over 100,000 copies internationally. And Lono is an international expert on water filtration technology purification. He will be ready to talk to you and meet with you right here in the South Shore. He'll be at the Quincy Marriott. That'll be Tuesday, June 30th at 7 p.m. Healthy Water for Healthy Bodies seminar, and it's a powerful talk on the safety of our drinking water. Of course, he'll be joined by someone many of you are obviously familiar with. She's been on the program a number of times, Dr. Ann Doggett and her husband Jeff, and they obviously have a tremendous interest in this whole process, and obviously they're presenting it through Whole Body Solutions. And folks interested in finding out more information, www.wholebodysolutions.org. And once again, that seminar is going to be a very important date, June 30th, Tuesday at the Quincy Marriott. And we're going to take a very short little break, and Lona will be right back. Stay tuned. Alrighty, welcome back. And we got to have a word or two with Candida, as we do at this time in the broadcast each and every Sunday. Candida, welcome.
How are you?
Great. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, thanks.
Your show was great tonight. I enjoyed it.
I know, wasn't it wonderful?
Really good show, yes.
The oneness blessing.
Love it. Love it. So what's happening at Good Health Natural Foods these days?
Well, I don't know if most folks know that you could actually email your questions, and you actually get responses from the staff there. So they had 3 emails that they thought I should share with some of the listeners, and you could maybe help and fill in along
Good
the way.
idea.
Okay, it says, I have been told that soy may be helpful for my menopausal problems. Is this true? And they say, yes, soy is found in many natural remedies made for mature women. Published studies indicate that plant estrogens can significantly reduce the symptoms of menopause, and soy is the only vegetable containing all 8 essential amino acids.
That's absolutely true. And much of the research has clearly indicated that plant-based estrogens, what they call the 2.0 alpha hydroxyestrogens, tend to antagonize the animal base. So they're absolutely right about that.
Very good. The next one is, I recently have lost a loved one. I'm feeling very impatient and angry. Is this normal? I do not want to go on prescription medications. Are there effective natural alternatives to the Prozac, Paxil, and Zoloft? We can mention those, right? Yeah. Well, they say yes, after a traumatic event or even death, what you describe is very common, and these feelings are all a part of clinical depression. The good news is that there are terrific supplements that can promote balanced brain chemistry to support positive emotional health. So they recommend a new chapter. Seraphin, is that right?
That's right.
Acts as a natural mood stabilizer, and they feel that it is the most concentrated and fast-acting product on the market. Also, your favorite, holy basil.
Love it.
Tell us about that.
Well, holy basil, a number of different studies actually done out of the country. There's one study from India that I saw, a very viable study, very conclusive study that showed that the holy basil has some very powerful curcuminoids, which are like antioxidants, and these curcuminoids were actually able to mediate the stress hormones that are produced in the body. In other words, you during the course of the day quite naturally produce adrenaline, of course, aldosterone, and you're producing a number of different stress hormones. Well, This research indicates that the holy basil helps us to mediate that so that the levels don't go too high and too low.
Interesting. Good
Cortisol
point.
was the one specific hormone that they studied with this, cortisol. So holy basil is terrific. Those are 800 milligram capsules. I usually recommend 2 a day. Great little mood elevator.
Yeah. The next one is I really have incapacitating allergies. I get so sick I can't get to work. And are there any natural supplements that can help? And they say, yes, fortunately, there is a hope for you allergy sufferers out there. There's some homeopathic remedies and herbal tonics that offer relief. Quercetin, which is a powerful antioxidant, dramatically addresses existing symptoms and will reduce these symptoms every year. Any other helpful hints?
Well, quercetin really does work very nicely, and it has many of the same sort of properties that vitamin C actually has, believe it or not. And I recommend fairly stiff doses of quercetin, usually 500 milligrams, I'll say 3-4 a day. And it does work, and it works quite exceptionally well. There are folks out there that may have allergies to onions, for example, who wouldn't want to use it because most of the quercetin is obtained from yellow onions. But for folks who don't have that allergy to onions, a terrific way to actually stimulate your immune system and neutralize the negative side effects with allergies. So I think quercetin's a great way to go.
Very good. Well, I thought this was really neat, this new thing.
It's a great format.
Started,
absolutely it is.
It?
I like it very much. Absolutely.
And where are good friends located, Mark?
Good Health Natural Foods, 2 locations, 1637 Hancock Street, and that's in downtown center of Quincy, Massachusetts. You can call them there, 617-773-4925 or 219 Columbia Road. That's Route 53 down Hanover Way, 781-826-0808. For all things natural, it is
Good Health Natural Foods.
Nicely done.
Can I plug a little something I have going on?
Plug away.
Well, I officially can announce that I am starting the Hanover Farmers Market.
Very nice.
Which is going to be at the Hanover Mall at the Circuit City parking lot every Saturday from 9 to 2, and the opening day will be June 27th.
And I predict a gorgeous day.
I do, too. It doesn't matter because it's rain or shine. Come, grab your fresh
Well, if it's not gorgeous by June 27th, I'm moving out to Boulder with Lono. Absolutely. That sounds terrific.
The town has accepted it with open arms, and we're so excited. It's a natural farmers market, so we're going to have, lots of different vendors there. Jewelry, natural jewelry. We'll have some massage therapists on hand.
Wonderful.
Yeah, it's
well,
really
congratulations.
Great. Thank
Another
you.
wonderful endeavor off the ground.
I know,
you work very hard. You deserve kudos for that.
Excellent. Well, thanks for having me.
Have a great night.
All right, you too.
Give the kids a hug.
I will.
All right. All right, let's get right back on point here. Lono, are you still with us?
I sure am. I heard you talk about moving out to Boulder, Colorado. I live actually up in the mountains.
Oh, boy.
Outside of Woodland Park, Colorado. We're at about the 9,000-foot elevation. I'm completely surrounded by national forest. We don't have any neighbors here. And we just had a visitor just before the phone call. A nice big bear was in my driveway and trying to get into my garage.
You truly do live in God's country. That is fantastic.
I do.
God bless you. That's
I'm
fantastic.
a Colorado cowboy kahuna. I'll probably be the only one you'll ever meet.
That's a great combo. Wonderful. Hey, I want to get back onto some of what we were discussing here earlier. The environmental catastrophe of bottled water is a real hot topic these days. We've, in the past, probably a year and a half, 2 years, been really fed a tremendous amount of, well, in some cases, confusing information and frightening information regarding the bottled water. Talk with us for a moment or two.
Well, bottled water is... It can be a convenience at times for certain purposes, but it's sure a poor way to try to get your water.
Right.
In the first place, a very extensive study of bottled water completely across the country, and I think that was done by the National Resources Defense Council. It was a big study, and they showed that 40% of the water that's bottled came from the tap in one town and is bottled there and then put into another town. A very high percentage of bottled water contains all kinds of bacteria breeding like crazy. If you've ever been into some of the places that bottle water, you'll see caps come in one box and bottles in another box, and people with long hair and sneezing are handling the whole thing. And and it's it's not the FDA regulates bottled water, not the EPA. Yep. And the FDA it said has less than one person to supervise the entire bottled water industry. So that there's, spring water turns out to come from underneath the parking lot in a city where it's right adjacent to a Superfund site. All kinds of stuff going on, and now, of course, we know that if it's processed at all, it's typically processed through the modality of reverse osmosis. And what will happen is reverse osmosis will actually concentrate the chloramine. We talked about chloramine in the last segment. It'll concentrate the chloramine in the water. And chloramine is very irritating to the gastrointestinal system, to the skin. And now it turns out that we've just discovered some of the most toxic disinfection byproducts. They banned the chlorination because of the disinfection byproducts. Now the most toxic ones we've ever discovered turn out to be a byproduct of chloramination. So it's not the kind of thing I would drink on a regular basis, frankly. Not
at all. And, a lot of folks, I think, whenever I counsel folks, they think that they're insulated. No problem, I have a Brita system.
That's a joke.
That is a joke.
Those things are jokes.
Even if you measure the Brita systems by the simple measure of total dissolvable solids, they don't remove anything.
All that those kinds of systems can remove, the kind that sit on the end of your faucet, they're actually dangerous. What they do is they're processing. Remember, your kitchen sink should be designed to pour out 2 to 3 gallons of water at a time per minute. And these things, all they can do in that time is convert chlorine into chloride. That's it. So chlorine does impart a taste to water. But there's very little of anything else they can actually absorb out of the water because the water isn't in contact with the media enough time to do any good. And then what happens is that the media becomes very, very ideal breeding ground for bacteria. And if you're not changing those filters every week, you're getting a huge buildup of bacteria in your water that's getting dispensed into your glass. And most people don't change those filters that frequently. So not only do they not really do that much except make the water taste a little better, but they can actually make your water dangerous. And by the way, refrigerator filters are worse than that. All these filters with the refrigerators with drinking water on the door.
Right, yes.
Those are very expensive filters to replace those things, and they're just made out of the cheapest carbon these people can put in a cartridge. But yet they sell them for $60 and $70, and it's hard to get the one that matches the model for your refrigerator. And they've all been designed so that you can't refill them or you can't buy some other product. They've got these proprietary little housings that you have to buy that brand's filter, at some exorbitant price, and so people don't change them. And you go into somebody's house, these things should have been changed every 3 to 6 months, and here's a refrigerator that's 5 years old, and you say to the guy, when's the last time you changed your filter? And he says, well, I've never changed it. And the amount of goop that thing is putting in their ice and their water is staggering.
We also, at the outset of the broadcast, Lono, talked a little bit about fluoride, and I mentioned some of one of my favorite books, the Dr. John Yamayanis book, Fluoride, the Aging Factor, where he mentions that as many as 100 million Americans are poisoned every year by fluoride, and 30 to 50,000 die from it.
Yes. It's a terrible thing, and now I don't know if you're aware of the latest research. Began by Harvard Medical School and now confirmed by Dartmouth on huge tens of thousands of children in both studies. And what they discover now is that most fluoride that gets put into the water is not sodium fluoride like you find in your toothpaste. The sodium fluoride in your toothpaste is benign compared to what the cities put in your water. What the cities are putting in your water is hydrofluorosilicic acid. And hydrofluorosilicic acid is extremely irritating to the gut. And when your little kids are drinking this stuff, it causes their guts to absorb twice the amount of lead that they would otherwise be absorbing. And so now there's been this big linkage drawn between fluoridated water and lead in the water supplies, and now it's all getting worse yet because we talked about chloramination.
Sure.
Well, the problem with chloramine is we also now find out that it doesn't really kill all the bacteria. In fact, there are certain varieties of bacteria that actually use chloramine for food, and their byproduct of their metabolism is acidic. So what's happening is all of the lime scale that used to protect the water from the lead pipes and lead solder and lead fittings and high brass lead, that is so common in all of the water infrastructure. All of that is now leaching into this acidic water supply, and we have this great big, huge scandal in Washington, D.C. about a year and a half ago, summertime,
right.
Where they discovered that schools in Washington, D.C. had 1,500% the amount of lead in them, in their water, in their drinking water fountains, than the EPA maximum.
Incredible. Well, there's 1,000 parts per million of the sodium fluoride in a tube of toothpaste, and they claim that that's enough to kill a 20-pound child.
Well, the typical drinking water is going to have about 2 parts per million of fluoride in it. So 2 parts per million. It means that in a liter of water, you're going to get 2 milligrams of fluoride.
Wow.
And that's a lot of fluoride. When you're drinking that much fluoride day to day, it is not a healthy thing. Human beings are not designed for that. Women are going to wind up with osteoporosis. There's a direct linkage between fluoridated water and bone cancer. I could go on and on about why fluoride is a real bad idea to put into your water. My website, Lono's Water Guide, has a whole article on the best articles that you can find on fluoridation, personal care product, pharmaceuticals, personal care products, arsenic. If you want to find out what the dangers of these things are, go to lonoswaterguide.com, which I use to help sell my book, and it will give you the information that you're looking for. And that study I was talking about on fluoride, the reference to those studies is there if you want to look for it, Mark, and put some more arrows in your quiver about why it's not a good idea to drink fluoridated water.
Absolutely. And the St. Louis University study of 1963 that showed that only 9 days of fluoride exposure would develop tumors in animals.
Yes.
Oh, boy.
So there's lots of things, and the key is to take personal responsibility and start to learn what's real. We have a 10-point guide to what you want to look for in a water treatment system, and that's going to be handed out to anybody who comes to our workshop. It's and along with a copy of my book, and I just really am looking forward to seeing people there. I'm sorry I didn't have the time right off the top of my head when you asked earlier, but I'm glad you were able to.
We recovered on that one, yes, indeed.
Yeah, Tuesday, June 30th at 7 at the Marriott Quincy.
Absolutely right.
And you'll get a free copy of the book. But I can tell you there's some really dramatic water filters out there now that are very, very good. There's new information that's surfaced about some types of water treatment systems that turn out not to be as healthy as everybody thought they would be. And these are things that people need to understand. This stuff can make a big difference in the quality of your life.
Absolutely, no question. We are speaking with Lono Uala, a world-renowned water filtration expert and biochemist, best-selling author of Don't Drink the Water. He's coming your way. He's coming here from Boulder. He'll be here on the 30th of June, Tuesday the 30th of June at 7 o'clock. And as we pointed out, that will be at the Quincy Marriott. Folks interested in obtaining tickets, interested in getting there, and boy, you certainly should be, you can call 617-328-6300, or you can simply go to www.wholebodysolutions.org. We got to pay a couple bills. We'll be right back. Stay right where we are. Alrighty, welcome back. We've had a remarkably enlightening and an enjoyable conversation with Lono Uala, world-renowned water filtration expert, biochemist, author of Don't Drink the Water, and he is going to be right here in your backyard. He's going to be in the South Shore. Specifically, he's going to be at the Quincy Marriott Tuesday, June 30th at 7 o'clock for a very powerful talk on the safety of our drinking water. This Healthy Water and Healthy Body seminar, of course, will include Dr. Ann Doggett, of course, who will join Lono, and she's certainly been on this broadcast a number of times and has some wonderful, wonderful health and healing information as well. And folks interested, once again, www.wholebodysolutions.org, or you can give a call, 617-328-6300, and you're going to find out everything you need to know about water. Lono, I would like to find out from you exactly what is the prescription here.
Well, thank you for asking. I have developed this questionnaire that I tell people, when you get ready to shop for a drinking water system, here are the things that you want to be concerned with. And if you'd like, I can go over them.
Sure.
Number one, is the system guaranteed to reduce bacteria and cysts by at least 6 logs, which means 99.9999%. That's extremely important because more and more bacteria are showing up in drinking water supplies. I've been directly involved. One of my claims to fame, if there is any such thing for me, is that I was instrumental in the development of capillary membrane technology. We brought it here from where it was developed in Germany to be able to separate red blood cells from blood plasma. And I brought it here and we adapted it to drinking water systems. So we have in our living water systems the only systems in the world that can guarantee disinfection from all of these microbiological pathogens without the need for power or water waste or high water pressure.
Great.
And Forbes magazine calls this technology, it ranks it as one of the 10 things that are going to change life on Earth as we know it. They rank it up there with fuel cells and with things like gene therapy because of how hard it is for so many people in this world to get drinking water supplies without the need for power that are disinfected to the level that they don't have these huge problems. I know back on the East Coast and on the southern part of the country during the hurricanes, sometimes the only people who have drinking water are people who have one of our systems, because they don't have they have electric stoves, they can't boil their water, trees are down in the road, there may be water coming out of the tap, but it's not safe to drink. And if they have one of these living water systems, they can drink their water with great assurance that they're able to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's capillary membrane technology, and that's the number one of my list, and that just makes sense. I mean, as far as the cities are concerned, when they treat water, that's their number one concern is microbiological protection.
All right,
so losing.
So number one, get rid of the bugs.
Yeah, you got to do that, number one. Second most dangerous thing in water is you have to ask if the system is extremely effective at reducing lead, mercury, cadmium, chromium, cyanide,
arsenic,
beryllium, aluminum, all the metals, because that can be a serious problem, and including arsenic.
Yep.
Now, arsenic is a far more toxic substance in drinking water than most people realize. At the level that is now the EPA maximum, which is 10 parts per billion, arsenic still can cause 1 cancer in 500 people who drink it. And the EPA's typical way of looking at this is they want to strive for a goal of 1 in 10,000. But arsenic is so hard to get out of drinking water and so expensive for municipalities to deal with, and you have it out there in your water supplies at that 9 and 10 parts per billion level, is that it's so expensive. The EPA they won't lower it further than that because it would put too big of an economic burden on the utility companies. And this is something people need to know about. A new study just came out from Dartmouth about swine flu and arsenic, and it turns out that the people who are dying from swine flu are people who have arsenic in their drinking water supplies. And the arsenic is depleting the immune system to such an extent that this virus gets started in the lungs and builds up to dramatic levels before the body can kick in to start fighting it.
Right.
So that's something you want to be very, very careful about, and that's why I'm not a proponent of ionizers, water ionizers, because people don't realize that these things actually concentrate the level of arsenic, lead, mercury, cadmium, and all these metals. They're cations, and they go out with that alkaline water stream. And this is something people haven't thought of before, and I'm on a crusade to inform people about, because I know the idea is a great idea to have the alkaline water. There's other ways to do it besides an alkalizer, and alkalizers, it turns out, because of this, are very, very dangerous. And you don't want to be feeding your kids water out of an ionizer either because of the concentration of lead that can happen.
Right.
So that's an issue. Then you want to ask, is the system effective at removing chlorine and the disinfection byproducts of chlorine and chloramine, like the trihalomethanes and the haloacetic acids? And about anything that uses carbon is going to be able to do that, but not where your water is chloraminated. That is going to require the catalytic activated carbon and a big enough quantity of it in the filter that there's enough contact time with the water to remove the chloramine. So that's important. Then the next question, is the system effective at removing pesticides, herbicides, fuel additives, MTBE, perchlorate, PPCPs, all the rest of all of those big chemical-sounding words that have a tremendous effect on our health. Endocrine, as you mentioned, endocrine disruption is just one thing. A lot of cancer, a lot of nervous system disorder, liver dysfunction, pancreatic dysfunction, lower bowel dysfunction, hiatal hernias. All this stuff can come from these kinds of contaminants in the drinking water. We talked about this earlier. You want a system that's effective at removing fluoride. That's extremely important. And if there happens to be, if you're in an area where there's a lot of agriculture, a lot of pig raising, chicken raising, a lot of fertilizer use, you want to make sure that the system's effective at removing nitrates. And then probably the least expensive thing is the least important thing towards the bottom of the list is, does the system preserve the healthy alkaline minerals of calcium and magnesium and potassium? That's what you really want in the water. That's what makes the water healthy to drink. It's not the pH of the water, it's the number of alkaline minerals in the water, because that's what's going to impact your physiology.
Right, it's the ability for that water to help your body keep and maintain a healthy
hydration.
pH, right? Exactly.
And the pH, people, I try to explain this to people. pH is just a measurement. It's like a thermostat on a wall. If you set it at 70 degrees, and the thermostat has a thermometer that shows 70 degrees, that's kind of like pH. But what we don't know is how much, if the room is 65 degrees, how much heat is it going to take to raise the room to 70? If you're in a room like I'm sitting in this beautiful log home that I live in with these 25-foot ceilings, and I'm in an area that's got, thousands of cubic feet of space, it's going to take a lot more to raise this room 5 degrees in temperature than it would the bathroom downstairs.
Right.
That's maybe 5 by 8. So that's why pH is not as important as what is the nature of the alkaline minerals in the water.
Sure.
Okay? So we can talk about that, and we'll talk a lot more about that at the workshop and at the seminar. But the most important thing, don't lose sight of the fact that the biggest reason you buy a water treatment system is you want your water to be safe.
Of course.
And then if you can get some minerals in it and some other things, that's all great and that's important, but that's very much at the hind end of the horse. You want to pay attention to the front end. You want to be able to make sure your water is going to be safe. And the biggest issues about safety is microbiological contamination and those sorts of things. And of course, then there's other things that we put in our buyer's guide. You want the system to offer a value. You don't want to wind up paying 5 times what something should cost,
right?
For that given technology. So you want to have some awareness of what's a good deal here and what's going to be reasonable to maintain. And bringing up the idea of bottled water, why pay $1.50 a liter or $2 or $2.50 a liter for bottled water that you don't know what's in it, when the water that comes out of one of these living water systems, as an example, and there's others that are good out there, it's not the only one, but it's the only one that has this capillary membrane technology.
Right.
But you're looking at 15 cents a gallon. 15 cents a gallon.
Amazing.
As opposed to $2 a liter.
Amazing.
And the one is absolutely the best water it's possible, physically possible to get on a regular basis to drink, and the other one you have no idea what's in it, and then you've got all these bottles piling up in the environment, and that is a mess.
That's another problem altogether, is it not?
Yeah. So thank you for the opportunity to share all this.
Hey, thank you so much for joining us. Lono Uala, a world-renowned water filtration expert, author of Don't Drink the Water, and a bestseller at that, 100,000 copies internationally. He will be joining us here in the South Shore, and that'll be Tuesday, June 30th. And that seminar will be at the Quincy Marriott, and it'll be 7 o'clock in the evening. And Lono, thank you so much for joining us. We really sincerely appreciate it.
You're welcome, Mark, and I hope I get the opportunity to meet you in person sometime. And I'd like to remind people that there's a lot of good information on my website, www.lonoswaterguide.com.
Thank you so much, Lono.
You bet.
And again, folks interested in checking out the seminar, and certainly you should be, there's a tremendous amount to learn from Lono's wisdom. And again, Dr. Ann Doggett will be joining Lono that evening. www.wholebodysolutions.org, or you can call 617-328-6300 for tickets. And again, tickets in advance are only $20. So to enjoy sharing in this remarkable experience for only $20, a great, great take for the night. And you'll learn a tremendous amount, as you could tell from Lono. And I should also make sure that I point out that Adam Ing makes this broadcast podcastable. And for you to be able to check it out, you can go to our website, www.maxhealing.com. You can watch this broadcast anytime you wish. And we also want to remind everybody that on that website, you can take a peek at the various program segments that I do each and every Wednesday at New England Cable News. I will not be there this Wednesday. I'm taking a Wednesday off from NECN. In fact, the following week, I'm going to be doing a segment at 9:15. So just a little program note, and that's on our website. And Dr. Julie Johnson is next. Make sure you stay tuned for her. Until next Sunday, this is Mark Mincola reminding you all, please be wise, be aware, be well. Make it a healthy week. Good night.